Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. And for those of you that just arrived, basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just explain the story of the season, I guess, in a short way, from a leadership standpoint, and then kind of explain why so much went wrong. Because obviously, the start of the season, at least, was not a good start. So, okay, so I had the opportunity through interviewing and through some extensive trialing to be put in the position to coach Uprising Academy. Obviously, I was thrilled. It's something I've been pursuing for a while. Was the academy level. That was something that I've been going after for a long time. So when I spoke with Hobby Mineral and went through their whole trialing process, I was obviously ecstatic. When I was offered the job, I was even more excited. And that was around October-ish. Went through an extensive trialing period, finding different players that we were working and looking for. If you've ever gone to Liquipedia, and this is kind of how Boston Uprising Academy in particular functions, and you look at the results. Uprising Academy has never been a dominant team when it comes to actually results wise, right? They've always been a decent team, good team, but they've always been the team that is making an AMA channel in Discord. That would be awesome too. Thank you. They've always been the team that's basically like more interested in finding talent. So I'm gonna try and change scenes here. Let me know if you guys see this. I'm a little nervous with the scene changing here because it's been giving me issues today. Yeah, sweet. So if you look at like previous former players, right? Like there's a new number of the players that ended up going pro in one way or another. Let's see here. Klaus, team not found. Weird. Fusions, obviously. Nero, Shu, even back into Toronto days, right? Like there's a lot of players that Uprising Academy has spit out into Academy that might not have otherwise gotten that opportunity, because the big philosophy that the Uprising Academy wanted to buy into is we are trying to find potential. We're trying to find potential. We're trying to find players that maybe aren't standouts right now, but either through attitude, mechanical capability, or just intelligence, like the willingness to the drive, right? They might become professional players. So as an academy team, the results were placed on the back burner, and we'll talk more about why that was at least partially a mistake later on. But it was more of like, find the potentials, find the potentials, find the potentials, find the potentials. Like be willing to take not gambles exactly, but educated guesses. Like, okay, this might work out. This player has a lot of potential, and don't worry about it so much. And a lot of our players were kind of, hey, like for example, Tap, who Megalo, like he's an EU flex DPS player that the first team he ever played with in a competitive environment was his the Sheer Cold or whatever they were named before that, Indignity or something like that, right? And that was like, we really liked his attitude, we really liked his mechanical capability, and it was like, obviously Tap is not going to be a standout player for at least the first half of the season because he doesn't know squat about competitive Overwatch. Indignation, right? But we're willing to take that gamble because you know what? We're going to find players that are going to willing to put in the work and find results, right? A lot of unsigned teams have to put winning as more of a priority because otherwise you're just not going to get noticed, right? Whereas an academy team has a little bit more luxury. And I will say this though, like with all the players that we chose, we were confident that they were good players, but ultimately we did dip too heavily in the potential and we didn't balance that enough with players that were already good. Because there were a lot of players that we trialed that are good players, but we just didn't believe that they had a future at the Overwatch League level. And whenever we'd go with a player, like, well, if they're decent, but we don't know if they're ever going to get to the Overwatch League level, is that something that we want to be pouring a ton of resources in? The answer is generally no. But this is the thing that I've learned. And I will take credit for that mistake in particular with the scouting. The thing I learned is that let me put it this way. There are either basically too many things. If you have too many potentials and not enough actually like pillars, you can't focus on building on the potentials if you don't have any pillars. So obviously we have players like Kron, who's had history playing well, who's playing well, and he's been playing well for a while. But like we didn't have a lot of pillars. We had Dragon Eddie, who we really liked in trials, but who had been out of the competitive scene for a while. We had Lethal, who had zero history in the competitive scene. Tap, zero history in the competitive scene. Trying to think who else. We had Fat, who was solid, and Scalar, who were solid. But like there were a lot of question marks and a lot of people that we were willing a lot of people that we were willing to take gambles on, but it ended up being too many. And I'll talk about why those gambles especially didn't pay off. But first off, I want to say that everybody that we first signed, no trash talk. Those guys were good players. They were put in an unfavorable situation, and I've got nothing but good things to say about them. And I should know, because obviously I didn't just coach them. I spoke with them. I'm still speaking with them to this day. They're good guys. They're good players. It just was too many potentials without enough fundamental pillars to build off the potentials, right? Like what we optimally would have done is signed one or two more strong veterans that we can sign a couple of noobs, and those noobs can learn from the pillars, right? And the team doesn't just go to garbage, because that was part of the problem to begin with. Okay, so that was obviously our first mistake, first problem with that, and I take full responsibility for that. The problem with that, though, is that some of the question marks about the team is, as Punk is asking me, why did the team go full EU? There wasn't a purposeful thing. The team went full EU because the EU trials on EU ping were playing at a high level. They had a lot of potential in terms of mechanics and communication, and that fit what we wanted. The problem is we get in a situation to where we're signing players, and then all of a sudden we are getting we're going for visas. The visas are delayed because we didn't actually know the schedule for the contender season until very late. And so you were unable to apply for visas until you had the contender schedule. So when the contender schedule was postponed to a very, very, very late date, so we were supposed to know in December, didn't know in December. Supposed to know in even November, didn't know in November. We didn't know until the very last second what the schedule was going to be. So we send out the visas, and guess what happens immediately afterwards? You've got COVID. So now we have all these European players that should have been at the team house on NA ping, getting the full benefit. Oh, hang on. I got to let my wife on. Give me 1 second. Excuse me. So we have all these EU players that are supposed to be in NA ping at the team house, et cetera, et cetera. And what happens? COVID happens, no visas. Lethal is on 270 ping. We can't even scrimmage in we for a while we thought that we were going to get everybody, so we're just scrimming EU teams and sometimes NA teams because it doesn't matter. We're going to be in NA ping in a week anyway. Visas fail. We have 5 players on 150, 160 ping plus. We've got living situations that are starting to become a problem, noise problems. Oh, he can't be too loud because he's still living with his parents and he wasn't supposed to be. Like I said, Lethal is literally in Saudi Arabia playing on 260 ping. And obviously, there's arguments oh, well, so-and-so played on ping and they're fine, and so-and-so team has this so-and-so player on ping. Well, we had more than our share. We had Lethal on basically 5v6. Lethal was worthless in officials and on NA because he's playing hit scan. And the point being is it's not even the guy sounds like KSA. Well, they actually live very close together. The point is it's not just that we were at a severe disadvantage. It was the fact that people had higher expectations for an academy team, which is understandable. Obviously, we're an academy team. We should have all the resources, but we're an academy team that had none of the benefits of an academy team. We didn't have a team house. We had a team house. Nobody's at the team house. Nobody's on NA ping. I don't get the chance to actually work with these people in person. Like I said, the living situations that a lot of these players were in meant that they weren't as flexible with their time. So it wasn't they're full-time Overwatch players. Well, they're full-time Overwatch players living with their parents or living with friends. And so they can't do anything that they want to do. So it was legitimately playing at an academy level, but basically we're an unsigned team with a bunch of players that we thought that had potential. And so it was terrible. It was terrible. And obviously, scrimmages weren't great, but scrims were okay. Scrims weren't terrible. But really the nail in the coffin was, we get, Karasuno, I think was our first official. And we got curb stomped. I'm not going to lie to you. We got curb stomped. Karasuno was an excellent team. They proceeded to just crush it through the rest of trials and even do very well in the week following. So obviously that's kind of unlucky. I hate the tournament format for that reason, but I'm not going to make excuses. We were not the better team. But obviously that has a significant impact on confidence. So now you have players that are playing on high ping. They're not able to get any of the benefits of playing for an academy team, right? all the benefits of having an academy team, they're not there at all. And then you have a crushing loss to a really good team. And what do you think that does to your confidence, right? It sucked, and it hurt our team mental a lot. And obviously that's something that was like, it was like damage control for a lot of the staff. It was like Andrew, Noxious, and myself. It's like keeping everybody encouraged. It's all right, guys. Like, we're on ping, but we'll figure it out. It's gonna Caruso no or whatever. But trying to sort that out, and it was a nightmare. And then that followed up with a Noble, who is also a ridiculously good team. And at that point, like, that was, again, a 5v6. Lethal is just can't do anything. He's missing flash fans because he's flashing, but the flash doesn't register. I remember looking over the replay of that, and it was depressing. And this was at a period of time where I was actually at the team house with Scalar. He was the only person on NA ping. And I'd never been away from my wife for more than 24 hours. And like, honestly, like, it was a depressing time. The facility was great. The team house was great, but I was split from my wife for a month. The players were all frustrated. I was frustrated. I mean, you start to lose games, right? And so you just double the hours you're putting in. And I'm like working 85, 90 hours a week. And it was not a good time. It was not a good time whatsoever. And I really feel for everybody on the team as a player that was part of the team during that time, because that was a very difficult time for everybody involved in the team. It was really hard on everybody. We got a lot of support from the main team. I got to talk with a lot of their coaches, and obviously Huck is always very supportive of everything that we do. But it was a very difficult time. It was a low point for my career to think that I'm putting in so much work. We're getting screwed over by visas. We're getting screwed over because we tried to invest too heavily into potential and didn't pay off. And now we're literally getting memed on. Because obviously you guys all know, probably some of you guys were doing the memeing, right? Like, you guys are posting on Twitter and in Discord, and I'm getting pinged and so, like, making fun of the players, making fun of the team. And we sucked, obviously. But it's like, it sucked because it felt like there was nothing that we could do. It felt out of our hands. And then obviously that gets in the back of your head, and it makes you play even worse, because now you're like, oh, there's nothing I can do, so why do you even bother? So that was a low point. And I think the worst part about that, about the trash talk, because you obviously expect it. Like, that's just part of being, a professional Overwatch team, is you're going to get people making fun of you and talking trash and on social media. That's just kind of like what you have to deal with it, and you get used to it and kind of just shrug it off. But I think the hardest part was seeing friends, people that I've coached with, people I've worked with before, people that I worked really hard with and that knew, like, the effort I put in, and that, like I said, friends, people that I really liked and gotten along with, and buddies of mine, and seeing those people talk trash about my team, and seeing those people retweet anything trashing Uprising Academy and the leadership and all that stuff. And like I said, there was obviously mistakes made, but I felt like I was doing the best I could, and it was really disheartening to see, like, people, again, that I'd worked with and that I knew and that they've always been really supportive of me, and I've been supportive of them, just trash me and my organization that I work for. That really hurt. That was tough. Did losing to dark mode boom your guys' mental? Not really, no. We were really tired of that game. I felt like we did a good thing, but honestly, credit to Dark Moon. Dark Moon was a darn good team, especially in that current meta. That was a very, like, you could stack Torb Kree, and that was not something that we had played up against, despite us playing 3 officials after that. So, like, no. Like, Dark Moon was a good team. Like, we were tired at that point, and obviously we were really frustrated. But, I mean, credit to Dark Moon. They did a good job. They had a really cool strategy. Like, they were very good against mediocre or bad teams. And at that point in the week, we were a mediocre team at that point with our energy, because they just do whatever the heck they want to do. They didn't have any strategy. They just screw around, and unless you're like super disciplined and full of energy, you're going to struggle with that. But anyway, getting back to topic, obviously super disappointing results. Everybody's kind of boomed, not angry at each other. Everybody kept a pretty good attitude about it, but like deep down, like the motivation, the drive was just not there. So change was necessary, whether it's too heavily investing into potentials, not getting the visas, that was completely out of the question for the near future. So we're like, well, we can't just throw the season in the trash can, right? Especially because it's no longer a question of, oh, we're still working on the potentials. Well, the potentials are boomed, and they're not having fun. So even if somebody like Lethal is going to be a great player, I think Lethal is a great player, but I mean, he's frustrated. This is not a good training environment for him at all. This isn't good for him. It's not good for us. It's not fair to him to tie him down to Uprising Academy, playing on NA ping, getting trash talked on Twitter, and probably killing his motivation to play the game. So we had to make a change. So obviously we like the off tank was kind of up in the air for a long time. Frost had served with us for a little bit. Really nice kid, hard competitor, and obviously that transition to False, who we have a lot of confidence in. False is an excellent tank. Kicked our butts with Karasuno, whatever, and he's a great guy. So we have a lot of confidence in him. We picked up a couple of different players as well. We got Jen, obviously I'm 37 from Korea. Still a ping issue, but less of a ping issue. And obviously he also was more experienced as well. So even though there was still a bit of a ping issue, like he's still on like 200 ping, that's noticeably better than 260. You can at least play the game. And he was very experienced. Knew his stuff, one of the good pillars that we talked about. And we also feel like he has a lot of potential to re-enter Al. He's a great player. So obviously that was great. And we started kicking tail in scrims. We started doing very well in scrims again. Like beating up on teams, every confidence level, like just the changing of those two players, not even feeling like Eddie and Lethal weren't problems. It was just the switch, the confidence boost. We start going to scrims. We're feeling confident. Ping is less of an issue. And then I had a very, very sad day where this was probably a couple weeks after we made the change, where Fat and Scalar messaged me and basically said that they were retiring. They wanted to talk about it, and they obviously they took some time to think it over, and I had several long conversations with them. But they said they're like, we're older, we've done the best we can. I just don't feel like the love of the game is stuck around, and they had a lot of good reasons. And that one, that obviously hurt. Like, I loved Fat and Scalar, again, just like Eddie and Lethal. They'd been through the thick, they had been through the thick and thin, and like, especially like we had turned things around, everything's going really well, and then like we lose two more players, and that hurt, and it hurt. But obviously that was the decision that they needed to make, and I respected that decision, and it just meant that we were, we're back trying to find players again. So Fat and Scalar obviously moved on. They had retired from Overwatch to pursue other things, and so replacing replacing those players was something that we put priority on. Again, trying to find players that were competent but also had potential at the same time. We managed to get 6 feet on NA ping, and 6 feet's a great player, and Doggo from EU, and Doggo's also a great player as well. So we were happy about that. And basically, like, Scrim started to do better. The ping is less of an issue. And like we actually started winning games. And at that point, it was just synergy that needed to be caught up on, because basically we'd wasted the previous 4 months because there was no synergy, like lasting synergy outside of Tap and Kron. But we're relatively happy with how the season ended. I will say that the game against Triumph in Trials, I think it was Trials, yeah. The last game. No. But the week before Trials and Contenders, the 3-1 against Triumph, very disappointing game. The worst official we had played up until that point. Even the loss to Square One, I felt like it was mostly like we just choked. But like the Triumph game was really poor. And then the playoff or play-in for the playoff against Hype Unit was the worst game the team had played up to that point. Now, obviously, we had lost against like Noble and Karasuno earlier in the season, but like we were not a good team then due to the ping and the confidence or whatever. We had crushed Hype Unit previously, and we had done relatively well in scrims that week as well. We just choked. We choked. Like the 2-0 against Hype Unit, we choked. We've got people jumping off the map. We've got people like just feeding their brains out. Communication structure was a wash, and it was my fault. It was completely my fault. I underestimated the mental strain, the mental pressure of obviously being in, hey, you win, you're in, I thought, hey, we've already done that last week, right? We were win, we in, or we lose, we're out, right? So I didn't put enough priority on making sure that we were mentally ready, and we were not mentally ready. And Hype Unit, the game where Hype Unit beat us, was the worst official that we had played all season. We underperformed unbelievably. There were no surprises. We knew what they were going to play. We had practiced against what they were going to play. They rolled out exactly the stuff that we knew how to play. We were confident in our composition. We had done pretty well in scrims that week, and just went to poop, and that was all my fault. So I'll take full credit for not mentally preparing the team there. But honestly, the season, like I like, we're not a meme anymore. Okay, like despite like, for those of you again that just joining, I talk about the season's beginning and a lot of the decisions we made and why it went so poorly. We're not a meme anymore. That was good. I'm still salty at the friends and people of mine, people I've worked with, trash talking me and the team. Obviously, the faceless people on Twitter and the people I don't know don't give a rip. It's your right to trash talk teams. We did suck, but obviously it hurt when people that I know and I've worked with and I like trash talk this, especially considering the circumstances. We were an academy team that had none of the benefits of the academy team at all. Okay, I'm gonna try and catch up on questions now. That's basically the story. If you guys have anything else to add, I will do. Back and try and check. Spilo, what is your take on many academy teams pulling out of Contenders, especially given that Upper Academy is not doing so well? I assume if you said, you know, they have very different excuses to do after scalar fat left. Okay, so a lot of the things is that, like, you have to understand, especially with the COVID situation, is that academy teams have to make money to be worth it. I know a lot of, like, academy teams have to be making money. They have to provide some sort of value, either through, you know, cash flow of getting rid of players or providing players to the main team. And a lot of teams, their academy teams would be more successful than Uprising Academy, especially this season, but they just didn't produce the talent. Or even if they did produce the talent, the team just decided that they weren't worth it given the current circumstances. Now, I'm not a numbers man, but it's a process of, okay, is the team worth it? Is it not worth it? It's not a charity. And I've been, you know, blessed enough to be able to stay within Uprising Academy, and they're blessed enough to stay within the Contenders format. But it's not a shock that, especially with this season where Overwatch League has been a little shaky, especially at the start, and with COVID, that academy teams have dropped out. I mean, scalar fat leaving hurt, but I'm confident with the replacements for scalar fat. What hurt us was having everybody in EU ping and our confidence being at an all-time low. That was what hurt. What are the basics requirements for people you'd be looking at? I mean, 4.6K, that's the first thing. Like, if you're not 4.6K peak, like, kind of the yikes. We have looked at players that weren't 4.6K peak, and but that's generally the minority. 4.6K peak, decent communication, decent hero pool, mechanics, obviously that sort of stuff. Attitude too. Like, you have to actually want it. You know, like, there's a lot of players out there that are they just don't really want it, men. How did it feel to lose to Dark Moon Esports? I answered that question. You guys are relentless. Freaking Carter, man. I honestly, you know what? Like, you guys tilted me, like, annoyed me with your attitude. But you know what? You guys put it together. I gotta credit where credit is due. Are Collegiate Far players carrying the team in a tournament we were playing? What is the easiest way to counter this? I mean, it depends. Like, what are the heroes run besides Pharah? I can't answer that. Just Pharah alone is enough to answer. You should make your face get bigger while you're talking. Maybe. I'm not right now. Why did the team go fully EU Punk? I think I already answered that one. Do players have restrictions in streaming or who they play with? Can they do with players from other teams? I don't think there's any restrictions with, like, streaming and ranked. Not to my knowledge. That would be kind of silly if there was. But, like, obviously ringing or playing scrims with other teams is something that we would frown upon. What are your thoughts on how NA Town is being developed when there's so much Korean superstars nowadays? I mean, I don't know. I don't work with every tier 2 and tier 3 team, so I can't really answer that in depth. But I do know that there's a lot of NA talent. There's, like, a lot of NA and EU talent has retired. So there's opportunities, especially with the COVID thing right now. If you work really hard right now, like, there are NA teams that, like, I do think that there are players in Overwatch League right now that aren't that good, that could be replaced, especially if there were visas opened up. So in terms of how it's being developed, I'm not sure exactly what that question means. Which character is your favorite lore in Overwatch? I don't follow lore a lot. I mean, I think Genji's lore is pretty cool and Zen's lore is pretty cool, but I don't know a lot. You're a cutie, thanks, 6. Why are you locking your wife out? Oh, no, because I drove home and she stayed behind at her parents' house, and so she got a ride, but the house was locked. I had the keys.
He doesn't love me.
Yeah, I don't love her either. Yeah, exactly. Saudi Arabia turns out insane mechanical players. True. Do you think Blizzard can do anything to help tier 2? I made a tweet about it, like, open up third-party tournament. Obviously, the tournament format in general, or third-party hosting. Tournament format is sucky. Like, at least when it's like, okay, you guys have to win this tournament, because it's like you get a bad first seed, you're out for 2 weeks. That sucks. It also sucks if you do really well in trials, you're basically playing like 7 officials. Like, that's insane. Back to back officials. And then that combined, like, maybe the tournament format wouldn't have been so bad without hero pools, but with hero pools and tournament format, awful. Awful. Lethal looked really good in Roar Esports. Yep. He did pretty well in EU contenders because we dropped him and he bang immediately found a team. Lower ping, only 140 ping, and he's doing great. How often do you and the AL coaches discuss strats at the coach camps? Not often. If I have questions, we'll discuss it, and we do have discussions, but generally it's very much we're both very nose to the grindstone. So there was more of that when I was at the facility, but less of that now that we're at a distance here. Hey, Foot Mob. Did losing to Darkman boom your guys' middle? Yeah. You guys could have done a lot worse with all the stuff that happened. The fact you got to playoffs at the time is a tribute to your hard work. Yeah, we almost got there. Almost got the playoffs. We choked, as I mentioned earlier. How come you cannot beat me? Because Triumph is a beast team. Triumph is a serious underrated team and has been for a while. I think Triumph could beat Doge on a good day. Or depending on the meta. Triumph is a beast team. Hydron is a good player. How do I get nice hair like you? Is this nice hair? Okay, hey Natter. How to get a wife?
They pick you.
They pick me, right? It's like the Harry Potter thing. The wand picks the wizard, right?
Whoa, wait a second. Insulting.
That is kind of insulting. The inanimate object. Yeah. Okay. Do only academy teams give players salaries? No. There are a lot of teams out there like Third Impact. Triumph, maybe. Noble. I know there's a lot of teams actually in the Contenders that are run by small-time organizations that do pay. Probably not a lot, but yeah. I mean, it's basically what Uprising Academy has been since COVID. Like, hey, we pay a small salary. You're not going to get a team house or facility or anything because, COVID, but, Do you guys have any plans to adjust the roster before Season 2? Can't answer that. I'm 3.1 KP. Could you guys sign me? 3.2K, and I would consider it. There are questions in the AMA channel. I'll get there back into just a second. Cyphate. How do I beat British Hurricane? You win one map. You win one map, and the team will implode. British Hurricane. I was so happy to see Young and Beautiful go down, man. I love IBTB, but man, that team stinks. Trash talking and throwing his scrims, man. Come on, brother. Ex Oblivione kicked their tail. Ex Oblivione was like a Humegalol team in EU Contenders, and they got their tail kicked. So, but yeah, British Hurricane kind of falls into that category for me, Do you need a 4.6K PG Contenders not academy? No, you don't need. Definitely not. There are a lot of 4.5K players and contenders. I would probably bet there's a couple of 4.4Ks, but I don't know of any. Can you speak to balance in coaching? When I was coaching, I found it difficult to balance esports different, be sincere in sports. You just have to be like super efficient, Foot Mob. So like balance is hard, and I'm not going to say like I'm a shining saint of it because obviously it's something I've struggled with, but obviously that is something that I did figure out a little bit. So balance when it comes to coaching, you just have to find out like where do you get the most value? Is it the one-on-one reviews? Is it prepping your reviews, like your team reviews? I got to refresh my second monitor. Is it watching Overwatch League analysis? Because a lot of it depends on your role as a coach. Are you head coach? Are you strategic coach? Are you like an analyst? But consistency. And then like cutting the fat. Like I do this a lot. Like one thing I used to do is I used to spend hours upon hours listening to other coaches' analysis. And sometimes these coaches weren't always that great. And I'd be like, man, I'd get like one minor thing, but it felt like I spent hours for like teeny little tip that wouldn't even actually help that much. So you just have to, it takes practice. It's a skill set. Ask this higher up. Are the things you can share about how you would prepare the team mentally for the win you're in game? I don't want to share everything because that's something I put a lot of effort in improving, and which is why I was actually tilted after a loss against Hype Unit. We should not have choked. We're the last team that should be choking. But in terms of mentally preparing for the win, I think the one thing that you can always say is like you can always just kind of like have as a philosophy is like to win. You need to practice hard. You don't go, all right, guys, we're going to try really hard. We're going to win this game. No, you try really hard yesterday and the day before that, the week before that, and 3 weeks before that, right? If you go in, and when you go into a game, the work's already done. You don't have to try harder. You don't have to like really grunt and groan and like you don't need to study. No, it's already done. You either win or you lose, right? And the wins and losses are what you did, the weeks leading up into the win or loss, right? Whenever you get into a game, so like whenever you get into a game mentally and you're like thinking about winning too much, don't worry about winning. There's like if you win yesterday and the week before, and when players try and win really hard, that's when you choke. Don't think about it so hard. Late, but you're early. Reminder for the people in chat that can post their questions in Discord. I'm not that early. It was like 1 minute. No, I wasn't early at all. Actually, I said 7 p.m. EST. I will gift us something whoever gets Spilo to say, yeah, nice try. So my cat, she knows the word EAT, so what if she hears that, she thinks it's time to eat. What's your goal in the near future? To win the City Contenders? Join out? Overwatch League? Yeah, it's Overwatch League. It's always my goal. Like, always Overwatch League. Full time. Don's made X Oblivione? Yeah, Don's is a beast. I had a good chat with him a couple days ago. Would you like to ship off your team to Korea like Philly did, especially when they region lock anymore? Why would I do that? As in, like, no. Korean Contenders is beast. We're building up our confidence, man. Like, you kidding me? I asked because you indicate you're working 18 hours a week. That seems too much for you. Yeah, it was way too much. Like right now, the ironic thing is like obviously 90 hours a week, and obviously we were under really bad circumstances, but the wins weren't, even with 90 hours a week, it wasn't happening. And this is with cooking for myself, working out every day. It's terrible. The weeks where we actually were winning, I was doing like 65, 70. And that's more sustainable. Still a lot of work, but it's sustainable. What are peaks like in essay contenders? I don't know much about essay contenders. Your ears dry into this headphones, yes. So some people claim signing Rhino was only a publicity stunt. Was your refutation of that? I mean, I can speak about it pretty publicly. It wasn't a publicity stunt. Rhino is a great tank. He's a great guy. And when Kron was initially signed, Kron was, like I said, another bummer about the season is for the first half of the season, actually up until the last game, Krondup was still in school. So he couldn't do certain scrim blocks, or even if he could do them, he'd be exhausted and he'd be like energy and he'd be playing terribly. So we signed Rhino because one, we thought he was a great tank, maybe somebody that we can look at in the future. Like the best way to get a read on a player is to actually spend time with him, right? So obviously Rhino is way too young, but in a year or two, if the game's still around, which I assume it will be, and Rhino's still around, which I assume he will be, I know Rhino's a great kid and it has a great attitude because we actually worked with him a long time. But obviously, on the blocks where Kron couldn't make it or Kron was too tired, because of school, we needed the main tank. We needed somebody that we could trust to play very well in the scrims, and Rhino was that tank. But it wasn't a publicity stunt. He was just he filled a need, and we got a lot of insight into his mental. Somebody will keep an eye on. Will there still be another contender season soon? I assume so. I can't exactly answer that right now. I'm not sure that I'm allowed to. Are you going to get into Valorant? Not planning on it. I like Overwatch too much. I have to be very careful not to burn myself out because you can love any game and still burn yourself out on it. Not playing at all. I like that. I don't play games very much anymore. I'm too busy coaching it. I love the game of Overwatch in terms of coaching it. If you guys have any other AMA, I'm gonna check Discord while the Twitch chat is dry before we keep going. But as always, just at Spilo. Okay, why did you start coaching MMA? Long story, I was finishing up my bachelor's in finance, and basically I was finishing up my finance, and we needed basically to be financially stable while I was finishing up my studying. So we moved up to New Hampshire, where my wife had previously taught MMA for children. Excuse me. And while I was finishing up finance, I really liked coaching, so I started to take MMA because I'd not really gotten into that. Started taking MMA, and then I started coaching MMA and then I finished up my finance degree, and I was like, you know what? Screw finance. I want to coach. So I started coaching MMA full time, and then the owner of the dojo opened up a second location. I was head instructor of MMA for 4 years, and I was doing that when I started coaching Overwatch. So I was balancing, full-time job and Overwatch, as most coaches do, and probably a lot of players that aren't students. And what school? What do you mean what? It's called Beyond the Belt. Mixed martial arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, that kind of stuff. It's great. It was great. It was not like fight training, but it was like intense, very like realistically like stuff that you'd see on TV, but like good fight training and also very good mental training. Like keeping kids accountable, like behavior. It was like traditional values of martial arts, but with a modern style. Because a lot of the old karate stuff is kind of bad. How do your players help settle nerves before tournament important matches? Any tips? So the big thing is it's just like I said earlier, the mental thought process that we win with what I've already done. You don't win by preparing yourself and getting yourself pumped up before a match. It's super overrated, especially in a very precise game like Overwatch. You don't need to get yourself pumped up. You're not going to war. You're not hitting or hurting anybody. You're just sitting at your computer screen. You just need to chill. So settling nerves could be as simple as, we've already won, guys. We've already won. We put in all the work. We've done everything that we need to do with preparation. Just chill and play a game. And don't worry about lost maps or lost fights. It happens. You come back and you do it again. So just kind of like reminding players that to work hard in practice, and then if they've worked hard in practice, then they don't have anything to be nervous about. But I don't want to go too much in detail on that because that is something I put a lot of time in. How tall am I? 5'9". You guys, 5'4". Who reacted that? Light waves. How much importance do you place on passion and desire to win over mechanical skill? When you go for these no-name pickups, what do you put more of an emphasis on? I mean, preferably both. There's never an either or. If there ever was an either or, we'd find another player that had both. But a lot of the times when you have players that have passion and desire, that directly leads to mechanical skill, at least over time. Now, with the academy, we have to be careful. Like we talked about how our mistake earlier in the season especially was overloading with potential. Too much potential and not enough actual like competence. Not enough competence, that's not fair. But too much of gambles, right? So the players that had potential didn't really have a structure to build around on, and that made things really, really awkward. In terms of like passion, desire, like, I mean, the answer is we want to try and find a balance of both. But passion, desire to like actually love the game, grind the game. If you're not playing ranked all the time and you're really loving it and you have a goal to become Overwatch League, then probably not going to be picked up. What was the hardest sacrifice you had to make that you're happy to have made? Being where you are now, I mean, this hardest sacrifice was, I mean, if you're talking about the hardest sacrifice or the ones that paid off the most, the hardest sacrifice by far was coaching Sydney Drop Bears. I was getting up at 2:30 in the morning, coaching till about 9:30, and then going to bed at 10 a.m., getting up at 2 p.m., and then working from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. with the MMA, coming back, prepping the night stuff, and going to bed at like 11, and then getting up at 2, and that was a couple months, but it burned me out hard. I started having really, really bad headaches and all that stuff, but that was rugged. But it was worth it. Working for Dave Harris and the Sydney Drop Bears was awesome. That was a great organization, great team. Sacrifice I was happiest to made was obviously phase 2. Again, another circumstance where you're working full time and then also coaching a team on the side. That team had a lot of problems throughout the season, but we ended up finishing by making playoffs and almost beating Atlanta Academy. The team that came closest to beating Atlanta Academy was some no-name unsigned team that had not won a single game in the previous season, and we almost beat Atlanta Academy. So that was a sacrifice that paid off, and obviously that led to me signing with Uprising Academy, which was awesome. What are the biggest changes working for an academy team compared to an unsigned team? I mean, there's more. You have more of an authority, so it's not a bad thing, but it's a great thing. Is like as a coach, there's more. I'm paid to kind of be the boss, right? So there's like with unsigned teams, you are literally an unpaid volunteer. Sci-Fate knows exactly what I'm talking about, and that could be a pain in the butt when it comes to certain, especially personnel situations. I won't get into the details of that, but anybody that's coached an unsigned team knows it could be a pain in the rear. So obviously, there's a lot more authority behind what I say, which is good. It's a responsibility, but it's good. But also, there's just more time. Like when I'm working with phase 2, 35, 40 hours a week. When I'm working with Uprising Academy, 65, 70 hours. So just more time, more expectations. There's more pressure. I wanted to win desperately with phase 2. We worked really hard to win, but if we don't win, like nobody's, shrieking to, at least not a ton of shrieking. Uprising Academy, if we losing, we're not doing well, there's a lot of shrieking, and rightfully so. But okay, not academy related, but do you think that you're at a point where you know enough, is confident that your skills good enough to be a head coach for an NL team? I don't know. I haven't spoken with a lot of Overwatch League coaches. I'm confident that I know more as a head coach than most Contenders coaches that I've spoken with. But I don't know enough Overwatch League coaches to know. I'm confident that I have made immense improvements. Even this season with Uprising Academy, probably learned more this season with Uprising Academy than I have with any other season. But I don't know. I don't know where I'm comparing my skill set to, so I can't say for sure. Silly question, but do OWL or Contenders teams have special IRL routines like exercise, getting players to eat healthy food, sleeping well? So that's something that is hard for me to answer. I had literally a whole chart of like, okay, this is how we're going to do, like our sleeping, and then like we're going to do a little bit of exercise, and then we're going to have like a living. Like I had everything planned for when we're going to have players at the team house, and all of that fell through because of COVID. So I assume so. I had plans at least for some of that. Obviously, you can't micromanage everybody, but like at least some exercise and some sleep accountability. And I assume a lot of Overwatch League teams do, but when COVID did, yeah. With the players I have now, I do encourage them to get sleep. I holler at them if they don't, and I encourage them to get some exercise as well. But obviously, you're living, it's 2,000 miles away or however far away, so that's a little difficult to do. Is there a point when a player is too old to go pro? No. I don't know a single player in Overwatch League that is too old to go pro. Even somebody like who the heck was the Houston Outlaws off Tink? Never too old to go pro. Like your drop off in mechanics isn't significant enough to have a huge impact unless maybe you're playing like hit scan or something like that. The reason why you see more older players quit is because they've spent a long time in the game compared to the younger players, and they have less to show for it. And I can tell you one quick way to kill motivation is to spend years and years and years at the game, and you've got nothing to show for it. So like look at somebody like a Taimu. He's washed. Why is he washed? Does he not have the mechanical capability? If you held Taimu at gunpoint, not that I'm recommending that at all, and said, Taimu, get up, train 12 hours a day, focus, and you instilled a really drive for him, and maybe gave him some drugs to make him super thought he would really want to play Overwatch. I don't know. Somehow found a way to remotivate Taimu. He could be Overwatch League level, 100%, regardless of his age. Same thing with Cool Matt. God, it doesn't matter. It's just that when you spend a lot of time doing this and you don't have a lot to show for it, or your motivation to play the game, or your desire, it's not as fun for you, then. So whenever I or anybody else refers to washed, they're not washed because there's some physical malady that comes on when you're 24 or 25 years old. I mean, if anything, when you're 23, 24 years old, you're physically at your peak. I don't know how that translates to video games, but in terms of actual sports, like National Football League, baseball, I mean, a lot of players actually don't peak until they're 28 or 29. So it's just the motivation. And right now, esports is a very immature scene. So there's a lot more. The cycling is a lot messier and a lot faster. I'm gonna take a break from Discord and catch up on Twitch. Let's see here. I'm saying a lot. I'm getting self-conscious of it. King Hydron, yeah. Oh my gosh, I missed a lot of questions. I gotta keep up. Will there be another contender season? No. How would you rate the innate contenders in comparison to one another? Innate contenders versus the other contenders regions? I don't know. I think innate contenders is not super strong right now, but I also think, okay, let's put it this way. I think innate contenders is very top heavy right now. That might be the case for a lot of other regions as well. I think Team Doge, Third Impact, and Triumph could compete with any team in any region. Don't know that they're the best. They'd beat consistently, but they'd compete. Korean contenders, they'd compete. They'd take maps. They'd take team fights. They'd definitely. I saw the discussion on Doge being a bottom 5 Overwatch League team, but making. I think that's. I don't know. I would say Doge, depending on the meta. Same thing with Third Impact would probably be. I don't know. I'm not going to speak on that, but I don't agree with either side in that argument. Let's just put it that way. What made Rhino such a great tank? I mean, both attitude and skills. He's a smart kid. He worked hard. Where are we getting some sweet UA merch? I don't know. You'd have to add, at the Uprising Academy Twitter. Give him heck, Maybe something happened. Maybe you just get a Boston Uprising shirt with my face on it, with my mouth open, because that honestly seems to be 90% of the time I'm doing anything, my mouth is open, because I'm constantly talking. And people are like, why are you wearing that shirt? And then you have to explain it. And then because it's such an awkward situation, because you have to explain it, you get to be friends with that person. Or you get a restraining order. Either way, you've made a social connection. When a new hero like Echo comes out, how do you learn to be able to coach your players in micromechanics? I mean, a lot of it is just, you obviously get familiar with the hero in practice range for a little bit, and then you just tell your team, all right, we're playing this hero. This hero feels like this should be how it's supposed to be played, so we're going to play this comp with this hero, and then you just POV and look at the person playing it, right? There's no real shortcut to that, though. Would you care more about experience or peak when it comes to recruiting? Peak, definitely. Experience is somewhat important, but also, like I said, experience, if the person has been in the scene forever and has never really improved, and then it's a little bit of a red flag. Are there any specific players in indicators, not UA, that you think are crazy good and deserve AL? I do, but I'm not going to tell you which ones. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I did BJJ. I taught at BJJ. I went to a legit BJJ school for a little while, but it was 2 hours away, so I didn't keep that up. But had a ton of fun. Love BJJ. Do you have any recommendations for dealing with tilt frustration? I mean, go into a game with goals and then that are separate from winning and losing, and then the tilt is more manageable. But it's not like, oh, just do that, and then you won't be tilted anymore. Like, dealing with tilt is a skill set like anything else. And if you continue, hey, I'm focusing this, don't get tilted, I'm focusing on this, like, you'll improve. Did you trial any Chinese talent? I believe we did. We did have Asian trials in October, November. Do you agree with Deepay's take about Chinese players being held back by the language barrier? 100%. Yeah, 100%. Like, I don't know what Deepay's take was, but the fact that Chinese players are being held by language barrier, yes. I don't know what statistic is, but if Chinese players in general speak less English than Korean players, then that's a huge problem. Like, Jen is fluent with English. So, like, it's a huge problem. If you can't speak English, like, it's a problem. What is the scouting process like for Uprising Academy? Do you look at certain regions or you just open up trials to any players who want a chance? I will not go into the details of that. There was a lot of things that we did with trials that I would have liked to have done differently moving forward, but we were relatively thorough. I will say that, like, it was an open trial for Boston, and then Academy kind of used some of that trial stuff as well. I have had players that have reached out to me directly, and I've asked for VODs and career profile screenshots, but I'm not going to go into details. There were no problems at phase 2. I have no idea what Spilo was talking about. Basically, he was lazy in phase 2. Shut up, Cypher. Is Academy team wages enough to live off of? No, it's basically, you kind of think of it like an internship. I mean, it depends on your living situation. I mean, I'm living with this hooligan, so, there's obviously, etc. work that needs to be done. Why am I so sexy?
Me or you?
No, not you. Heck no. What is it like to be the head coach of the only active academy team in right now? Does it create expectations pressure on the players? No. Like, you think that it would, but no. Like, obviously there's expectations pressure from being an academy team, but being the only active academy team, no. I mean, you guys can lampoon Huck all you'd like, but I mean, Huck has been very supportive of the academy scene. Doesn't deserve half the grief he gets, and about the other half I'm completely uneducated on. But Huck's a decent guy. I like Huck. And how do you feel like you're improving? You have somebody coaching or coaching? Okay, all right. You guys ready for a little bit of a spiel here? Okay, you guys want me to get on my soapbox? Hang on here. I'm gonna step up on my soapbox here. Okay, I'm actually wearing jeans and stuff too. I've got a nice little outfit going on here. All right. This is the problem with coaching. Okay, there's no feedback. You win or you lose, but there's no feedback. You as a player, you guys are you lucky little snots out there. You got coaches giving you feedback. You can go back and, like, even watch your replays, watch pro play. Like, where am I supposed to go? Oh, just read books, right, off of, football and soccer and stuff like that. The best coaching books I've read were ones that weren't even about coaching. It was about, like, communication or leadership essentials or sports psychology. It's really hard, because the way you improve at anything, especially for those of you who have been in my stream, know this, feedback, right? Feedback. Somebody's sitting there saying, okay, no, you need to fix this. Okay, good, but you need to be doing this better, right? But esports coaching, where's my feedback? There's nobody going to give me feedback. There's not even books out there, at least not very many, on esports coaching, especially esports coaching Overwatch. And every other coach out there is like, they're gonna stake their tents around. They're gonna keep all their secrets inside. I don't blame them, right? So when I feel like I'm improving at coaching, you're right. It is a little bit of I feel like I am. I feel like this was more effective. I feel like it was received better. I will talk with my players a lot. Be like, hey, how did you like that feedback? Or, hey, how did you like this? Or, hey, how did you like that? But, a lot of it is just trial and error. And the problem is you never really have a conclusive trial. So you guys know the scientific method, right? You're removing the variables until there's, like, you have, the controls and the variables. The problem with coaching and trying stuff is there's always going to be like 5 or 6 variables. You can't ever cut it down to one variable. So I feel like I am. I have, we won a couple more games. The coaching was better received. I tried out a lot of different stuff that in my experience, and especially I have a lot of experience coaching outside of Overwatch, which was very helpful. Like I said, the MMA, the mathematics, all that stuff. But it is really hard. It is really hard to feel like you're just getting better and better and better. It takes a lot of work, and even then, you really don't ever know if you're that good of a coach. That's what stinks. So everybody, just tell me how wonderful I am as a coach, right? Send the insults. Never mind. How do you prevent yourself from getting lost, stuck yourself? I mean, you just have to assume that there's a better way of doing whatever you're doing. Like, there's a better way of getting scrim feedback. I'm not doing it as efficiently as I could be. There's a better way of communicating. Or our VOD reviews could be handled or structured better. Like, that's pretty much what you just need to assume that you're doing it suboptimally and find a better way of doing it. You have to avoid changing things too much, because especially earlier in the season when we were losing so many games, I was literally every week, I'm like, all right, we're going to really focus on this. All right, we're going to really focus on this. I'm like desperately trying to win games, but that's a mistake too. You can't be constantly changing things. The team needs to have like confidence in whatever you're doing, but you do need to be able to willing to make at least small adjustments to what you're doing. And then especially between seasons, figure out your structure, figure out what you're going to be doing. Never buy that. I'm so far behind. Say your name. Who? King Hydra. You guys don't know a secret? I beat King Hydra 300-0 in a 1v1. My Zen versus his Tracer. 300 is really bad. Could a 4.7k peak ladder no name solo queue Elo Guardian wear McAl with no Contenders experience? Doubtful. A 4.7k peak ladder no name solo queue Elo Guardian could very quickly make a name for himself or herself in Contenders and then probably quickly jump to Al, but unlikely. Mirrored was with Uprising Academy. I'm 37 is playing from Korea, right? Why do we fall issues with high ping while I'm 30? Well, first off, I am 37 is on like 30, 40, 50 lower ping, which is significant at that level. So I am 37 does have ping issues, but fewer ping issues than Lethal does. And also I am 37, it was way more experienced outside of ping. So he was bringing more to the table in terms of communication, experience, and knowledge. Lethal was not experienced, didn't have a lot of knowledge. He was learning a lot. He's a smart kid. He learned fast, but he was at a double disadvantage, whereas Jen has only had a single disadvantage, and even the ping disadvantage is less of an issue. Spilo on a soapbox flying 6 feet tall. Shut up. Spilo hasn't improved as a coach. He's just good at listening to the actual smart people. I mean, that is a skill set, right? Listening to smart people. It's not actually 180 ping. It's like 210 ping. Do you VOD review your own coaching? I'm not going to answer that question. No leaks. Good question. No, actually, coaching now. No, doing. Yeah, it's a pain in the butt. What do you think differentiates great coaches like Krusty or Rush from the rest? I mean, a lot of it is. Okay, let me put it this way. Krusty and Rush, I would bet the farm. Okay, that's amazing. That's a little bit too much of an NA expression, but I would bet a lot of cash that Krusty and Rush aren't that much better strategically or compositionally than other teams and than other coaches. So a lot of times there's a lot of times it's like, oh, they're running a bad comp or they're running, they're this and that. A lot of coaching is about building a good structure, making sure you have quality practice time, and building a good team culture. And the problem with that is that sounds nice and happy, but it's an incredibly intangible thing to work on, and it's also incredibly difficult and slow to improve upon. So for something like Krusty and Rush, I guarantee you it has something to do with what they do with team culture. It has something to do with how they communicate and work with their team. Maybe somehow their practice time is more efficient than other teams. So that's what I would bet on. I would say that I'm certain that they have probably a slightly better take in the meta than some other teams, but I think that has the minority of what they actually have to do. So like a lot of people praise Krusty and Rush for like these genius compositions, but the real fact of the matter is a lot of times people read that this is the good comp to run because this team is running it, not because a lot of times the team makes the comp look good, not the other way around. Now there's obviously exceptions to that rule. Like if you're playing Symmetra Tor Winston Diva, you're probably gonna have a bad time. But I mean, heck, Shock could probably play a bad comp, make it look good, and fool bad teams into playing it, feeling like that will solve our issues. We'll play that comp, but they're not going to be good at it. It comes down to like the team culture, the execution, and not the composition. So I would say it has less to do with the strategic knowledge, more to do with their leadership and how they get good quality practice time. How difficult is it to build a team culture when the team is spread across US, EU? Very difficult. It's very difficult. Like I said, I'm going to continue to whine. We suck. Or we did suck early in the season. My fault. But I had a ridiculously hard job, man. We had no benefit of the academy team. None of the benefits of an academy team. Didn't Jonah go straight from ladder? I don't think so. Hey, Third J. Tier 3, would you recommend focusing on your team or just hard grinding your peak? I mean, both. Like, you can do both. You should be doing both. You have time for ranked outside of scrims. You should be making time for that. I will say this, that I think a lot of tier 3 players do a lot of team hopping, which I would not recommend. I think you'll learn more about team environment if you stick with a team, even if they're a mediocre team, if you stick with a team for a longer period of time. So like I said, a lot of teams like team hop, trying to build the super team that'll win open division. Don't worry about that. Find one team that's at least decent, right? And stick with them and build a culture. Not only will you have a better chance of actually winning stuff because you'll build synergy, but you'll learn a lot more about how to be a good player. Did the bad results of Boston Uprising affect UA morale and vice versa? Not hugely. I mean, obviously it's disappointing when the organization as a whole was doing poorly, but it was more of like Mineral and I are crying on each other's shoulders than more so than anything else. But how hard is it to play with a main tank with EU ping? It's pretty rough. I mean, it's not the worst position to be on high ping on though. Self-belief goes a really long way. Motivation also, people trust you more when you win, and that creates alliance. Right, exactly. I mean, it's like we flipped, like I said, like Eddie and Lethal being replaced. Like those guys were, the players were fine, but like getting it replaced is like, all right, things are changing now, right? And I mean, it doesn't matter if I sign 4.4 KP, or heck, if I sign Sci-Fate to play hit scan for me, just the fact that something was changing is like that, it creates that mental shift in confidence. What do you think is the Paris' issues were last year that held them back from being a top team? Myers, that they could have won the whole thing, but they just had a weird roster build. Not sure. I think culture had to do with some of it, but that's just a take of a player that I coach who has worked with the coaches. But I don't know, so I won't speak. That is my rule. If I don't know anything, I'm not going to spit a hot take out, because a lot of times the hot takes are either uneducated or like rude. So I'll pass. I believe the Boston Uprising team house was also intended for the UA players. Do they work there now? No, your players. No, the Uprising Academy has their own team house. Uprising Academy has their own team house. We work at the same facility, though. Separate rooms, but same facility. That's what Goat said, yeah. Do you think coaches should grind a single team in Tier 3 as well? I mean, here's what I think. I think as a coach, you should always challenge yourself. It depends on what you need to challenge yourself on. So I team hopped a lot early. Full screen my face! No, thank you. I don't know. It depends on the coach. Like, if you feel like your interpersonal skills need work and you want to build your confidence, yeah, I think sticking with a single team would be good. But if you need to work on, like, your game knowledge and stuff like that, I mean, popping up to higher SR teams if possible is pretty good. It forces you to keep up with the players. But I don't know. I haven't done enough work in the Tier 3, Tier 4 scene to know whether sticking to the team for that long. I mean, I sure as heck know that, like, sticking with Uprising Academy has been great. Like, I feel like super confident about it, but you've seen me play? What? I don't know what you're talking about. I booped what's his name, the British Hurricane off the map. I subbed, so Fat was late because of he had a doctor's appointment. I subbed in for a map and we actually won a couple rounds against British Hurricane in Scrams back. That was hilarious. I think it was Dan. Dan was targeting, man. He was playing Doom. He was actively looking to kill me. It's like, come on, man. Is main support the role of the highest game sense required to perform well? The main tank. I would say it's probably main tank, honestly. Main support requires a decent amount of game sense, and a lot of main support's IGL. So if you're an IGL, obviously you need the higher game sense. But like, let's just say your main support, main tank. If we take IGL out of it, because main tank or main support can IGL. If you take IGL out of it, main tank is more, because your job changes a lot more depending on the circumstances that you're in. But main support also has to have the role generally of ult tracking, so that obviously makes it a little trickier. How do you like Reddit, since I've seen you comment in there sometimes? How do I like Reddit? I mean, I don't know. It's okay, I guess. You play main tank for phase 2 as well? I assume you try hard in any situation. Oh, yeah! It was, shoot, was it Montreal? I think it was Montreal. I think I solo shattered, mistakes. I think I solo shattered and pinned mistakes on Busan. Is Paintbrush a good signing? Okay, so we looked at Paintbrush, and he stood out in our trials, way back in the day. We thought he was a smart player, so I think he's a good player. I don't know how he compares to whoever Dallas's main support is, but I think he's a good player. But again, this is like 8 months old, so I don't know. I don't know a lot about Dallas's inner workings. So a lot of the times, people in Reddit are like, "What? Why would they do that? Huh? Why would they do that? A lot of times when somebody does something or a team does something and they're spending thousands of dollars, there's probably a pretty darn good reason for it that you just don't know about, right? So like, I think it's fair enough to ask, why would you do that? But don't act like these guys are idiots. There's probably a pretty good reason that we just don't know. Spilo Pog. Hey, Sam. Okay, back to the Discord AMA. Do I miss Cole Beasley? Yes, he's my hero. He's the short white boy that's really fast. That's what I aspire to be. Imagine you had to coach a collegiate team while still being a student going to classes. How would you personally go about it? So obviously your classes are the most important thing. So focus really hard on what you're studying first. And then, like I said earlier, I think it was Footmob asked, how do you be efficient with your time? Well, you have to find what provides the most value. Is it preparation for team bod reviews? Is it making sure that you have 2 blocks of scrims every day? Is it the team discussions that you guys do, the team meetings, whatever? Like, you obviously have a limited amount of time, so you need to spend some of that time figuring out what's going to be the most efficient way to do it. So like, even if it means that you like, oh, I'm going to take an hour out of my VOD review focus and just put it on thinking for an hour. I'm going to think and solve how I want to structure my time. That in the long run would be the best use of your time, Baggins. Wave72 asks, is academy teams wages enough to live off of? So a lot of the times, I don't know. I can't quite answer this question. It depends on the living circumstances, but you have to understand a lot of these guys are like living at a team house. They're living with players, so it's enough. Academy in general is like it's an internship. That's kind of what you kind of think of it as. How do you keep a team motivated to play Overwatch? Well, I mean, generally I want to be signing players that are motivated to play Overwatch to begin with, so I don't have the added burden of trying to motivate them. But honestly, like, I think from your standpoint, Gio, because I assume that you're talking about your collegiate team, like find out what the team really wants to do. Like, getting the team all in the same goal is really important. Again, I'm not talking academy contenders here. This is elsewhere. So like, if one players want to have fun and some players want to win, you try and find a happy medium between the two. So that way everybody's on the same page and be like, hey guys, we want to be practicing this. Let's do it. That doesn't really answer your question, but that's a very difficult question to answer. If I could only give one piece of advice to each role, tank, support, DPS, which one piece would you give to each to excel at the role? Number 1 would be tank. Recognize the differences of play that you have to make against the different compositions. If you're a Reinhardt, Winston, Ball, you have to play completely different depending on the composition that you're playing with and playing against. So a main tank, like I said, in terms of the game sense, should know exactly how a Winston should play into spam, or how a Reinhardt should play into a Brawl, or how a Reinhardt should play into dive, right? You need to know how to adjust your play style as a tank, main tank or off tank. Support, being disciplined with your positioning. Like, your positioning as support is very important. Constantly having a support that's very, very disciplined with the positioning, whether it's Lucio, Ana, Moira, anything. Discipline with the positioning. And then DPS, I would say, what would I say for DPS? This is a really general question. Know when to take angles, I guess, with DPS. Know when to take flanks or angles. Know the timing. Practice the timing with your team. Any players you regret not signing? I don't really feel like answering that question, because if I regret not signing them, maybe once we sign all of Uprising Academy to Overwatch League, maybe we'll sign them. So I'm not going to tell anybody who those people are. Unfortunately, I'm not, fortunately, but also unfortunately, I'm not in a John Galt situation where I can chat freely about that stuff, because I'm continuing my job. What is your dream location? Oh, that's a tough one. I really think New Zealand has a lot of appeal for me, because I like the level of freedoms that they have there. And I also think it's a really beautiful location. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, thus the name Stormcrow Productions. Like, that's kind of been something I've been involved with for like a decade now. I also really like mountainous, snowy places like Colorado. I've always wanted to visit Colorado. I grew up in Western North Carolina, up in the mountains, and I really thought that was pretty. But in terms of one dream location, I don't know. I'm put a lot of thought to it. How did I originally get into coaching? What advice would you give to up-and-coming coaches? I've been coaching my whole life. Literally, it's the only job I've ever had, except for one job where I worked for a tree service for about 2 months, has been involved teaching or coaching. Every job I've ever had. So coaching was something I grew up with. My dad was a teacher, so kind of grew up teaching people and coaching. And then getting into coaching Overwatch was just because I don't just like playing video games. I like getting really good at them and like creating content and getting involved in the scene. So I got involved by doing VOD reviews, and that eventually stream VOD reviews, and the stream VOD reviews eventually turned into me trying my hand at coaching a team, which I ended up liking. Okay, back to Twitch. You think Titans did well setting a tier 2 team to fill the roster? I mean, Titans did that because they had to. Like, the Titans did that because that was financially what they decided to do. Now, I will not speak about the management quality. It doesn't sound like they did a great job managing that situation, but in terms of what options they had left, I mean, I guess that's the way to do it. Like, if you're gonna, like, probably would have made more sense to sign some promising tier 2 players than it was to sign washed Overwatch League players, because number one, it's gonna be a lot cheaper, and number two, you're gonna get a better following. Like, people are gonna want to watch the Vancouver, even if they suck. They're gonna want to watch Vancouver. It's like a old Shanghai situation, like where everybody wants the tier 2 players to win. You know, they might get roasted the rest of the season, but they're gonna get merged. People are gonna want to watch it. The players are gonna work for cheap. There's gonna be a level of excitement. And then, heck, maybe you find a couple of diamonds in the rough from the tier 2 players that you signed that you might want to keep for next season. Whereas if you just sign a bunch of washed, unmotivated players across Overwatch League, that's going to be really expensive, and that's not necessarily going to be like you have to have a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, ultimately, Overwatch League is a business. You want your thing. Like, what is your thing? Are you a good team? Are you a competent team? Are you a lovable team? I think they have a thing. So I guess that works. How much does winning Open Division matter when you want to move up to tier 2? I mean, winning Open Division in its current format isn't huge, I don't think. I think you can. I mean, it's pretty important. But it is what it is. I don't know a lot about the tier 3 structure though. I do know that you can get trials for tier 2 without winning Open Division. At least with the teams that I've coached. Like, I've looked at many tier 3 players in previous, not just Uprising Academy, but with Phase 2, with Sydney, and with Chicken Contenders, and even before, yeah. You said Huck doesn't deserve half the grief he gets. Could you tell us about the things he does right so people could change their minds? I mean, that's more Huck's responsibility. I mean, unfortunately, the part of being a GM is he's a relatively private person. He's a businessman, and he focuses on the business first. And I think one of the great things about his AMAs is that he was able to answer a lot of those concerns. I mean, Huck is respectful. Huck has always been respectful of me. He takes his job seriously, and he takes the development of players very seriously. He's not a rude, money-grubbing turd working at the facility for days, for months. I had nothing but good things to say about my interactions with him. Even with the Boston Uprising players, it's not a sweat job. The players got along well. It was a pretty cool facility. Everybody was having a good time outside of losing games. And you can even see it with the players, even players like Bruce and Swimmer. They enjoyed it. It was a good culture given the circumstances, and Huck does deserve a lot of credit for that. Spilo's advice for DPS, yeah. New Zealand gang, yeah. KSA's been popping off, yeah. Shockwave's been insane. Shockwave is somebody that we had been looking at for a while. Shockwave is good on Shockwave. Hangzhou's thing is pink, yeah. What do you think of Shredlock? He seems like a decent Tink player. He was good in Contenders. I don't know a lot about him, though. He's not somebody that I looked at a lot. So I can't speak. I don't know him. Again, if I don't know a player, I'm not going to just spit a hot take. I work with 6 feet before I really like him, but how can you make him focus on Overwatch? More the V game? What? What is the V game? Is it time to choose who is the best mod? The best mod is the one present. So you win by default. Oh, Valorant. Oh, 6 is motivated to get to Overwatch League. There's your answer. And there you go. If you love the game, you'll play the game. You don't have to play just. I don't have to play just Overwatch. Play Valorant, I don't care, but you play Overwatch. That's your job, and you play ranked, and everybody says, don't turn what you love into a job. But to me, I think that's a fine way of doing things as long as you're disciplined with it. I don't live for the weekends. I've got something to look forward to every single day because I coach Overwatch, but I just don't overdo it. There's a lot of coaches. I got a stack of books in the shelves about Bill Parcells and the Vince Lombardis, and they're great coaches, but their family mental health. And even at times their love of the game because they overdid it. Now they're great coaches and they made the sacrifices necessary, but that's never somebody I want to be. I want to work as hard as I possibly can and keep my sanity and still love the game at the same time. And there has to be balance with that. Best aimer you've ever seen? I mean, Capster's obviously a phenomenal DPS. Best aimer. Scalar was one of the most mechanically insane people I've coached. The guy was kicking DP, like we would do these SATA lobbies, these FFA warm-ups for scrims, and he'd be, I won't tell who obviously, but NA and EU people, he'd be winning these FFA lobbies playing like McCree against good DPS players. He'd be crushed. He'd be winning. He'd be beating them. Asking is great mechanically, yeah. Wait. Did you just say you play ranked? I can't convince people playing ranked. I don't play ranked, but yeah, pro players have to play ranked. There's no discussing. You have to play ranked. You don't get enough mechanical training playing scrums, unless you're scrimming 6-7 hours a day, in which case you're probably baking yourself. Carpe. Yeah. Oh, I mean, Overwatch League? I don't know. I haven't done I have a good idea of mechanical competency of the people I've coached. Tap, amazing, mechanical. But I can't speak for Overwatch League players because I haven't coached them. So if I haven't coached them, I haven't spent enough time studying them. If I haven't spent enough time studying them, I don't really know exactly how good they are. Any ranked players, streamers you think would have a huge success if they tried competitive? I mean, I know Kabaji would have, if he committed himself to expanding his hero pool. He's pretty good mechanically. I know ML7 is obviously very mechanically strong too. He's a good BAP. He's a good Ana. I don't know how good his Zen is, but if he wanted to go pro and he worked hard, he could definitely do it. He's got the mechanics and the game knowledge to do it. Ever heard of Dep? Nope. Why don't I play ranked? Because I don't have time to play the game. I don't play the game much, and generally when I want to chill, I don't want to play Overwatch. I want to step away from Overwatch, do something else. My top take is the best aimer is him. I don't know who Depp is, but I'm sure. Do you like the new version of Dive on Bringer packs? The previous Dive was better. I always felt like Lucio in the old Dive was a little dull to watch. Unless like specifically peeling your Ana or Zen as Lucio was actually really, really, really cool. So that part of Dive was fun, but it is pretty cool watching like armored tracers and armored Genjis and stuff, but like I don't know. To me, it's like I think Brig is like a good, like very well reworked, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't coach enough of the previous Dive to have an opinion though. Like my first composition that I ever coached was Goats, and even then I came in like halfway through Goats, so I've not been team coaching very long, so I can't really give you a firm opinion. But New Dive is okay. New Dive isn't bad. I like it. It's my favorite composition to coach for sure. Heard Jesus TV was on a team before. You mean J3? Yeah. As far as I know. Harblue to Al. I coached Harblue. Those of you guys that in chat that don't know. So most pros have been like always GM or top 5. I'm not curious with a player who's climbed from 2000 to 400. I mean, you'd look way better. If you've climbed from plat to 4.6, you're going to look way better. Because what that says is that you're dedicated. It's not that you're not, like, again, washed. Like, is a player that's been a 4.4, 4.5 for forever, why isn't he in Overwatch League now? Is he literally just never gotten the opportunity? Or is he just never really had the motivation to make that final jump? And generally the latter is the case, which makes him unattractive. Like, nobody cares what rank you were in season 10 or 11, or nobody cares about that. Like, how good are you now, or how good will you be? Has this meta been the worst diverse in AL? I mean, it's the most diverse in AL because of hero bans and because the balance changes. Which, to make the matter clear, I do not like hero pools. I think hero pools are unnecessary if Blizzard makes more frequent balance patches, which they said they would do, but they haven't done. The experimental patch with like the Genji buff, like that's the first noticeable buff or nerf thing that's been happening forever. Like hero pools aren't necessary if they made drastic changes. I know Jeff was like, oh well, we made balance patches, but teams refused to swap off of so and so comp, but they weren't doing severe enough changes. Like if you told me tomorrow that they're gonna nerf Reinhardt Shield to 1400, they're going to, let's see here, buff Lucio's speed by 10%, and they're going to reduce the ultimate cost by 10%. And they made a bunch of other like drastic changes like that. You don't need hero pools to change the meta if you make changes like that. So yeah, the meta's more diverse, but yeah. Don't you think Brig is broken now? I don't think she's broken, but she's strong. Why is Ball Winston being played over Ball Diva? Ball Diva is bad. If you want to know why that's bad, ask me later. Ball Winston is just hard dive. There's no tank trades. You just stage a dive and you go in. Ball Winston is probably played when there's like when you can stage your Winston safely and they're playing like double sniper. You also have to have a decent Ball or Winston player, which most off tanks aren't good Balls or aren't good Winston. There are a lot of off tanks that are good Balls, and there's some good off tanks that can play Winston decently, but that's not something every team can play because having an okay Ball isn't good enough. You just go Diva then. If they remove 2-2, what would be the new goats? I don't know. I'm convinced back in the day that Orisa goats would have become a thing. But yeah, obviously we'll never know. When did I coach Harbor? I coached Chicken Contenders into Contenders. Coached them for about 2.5 months. Maybe one or anyways, to bring back dead regions. I actually feel like part of the reason some regions are dead, at least with Australia, is because ranked is so like, pardon the expression, but like cancer. It's like rough to play ranked in Australia, and it is rough to play ranked in Australia because of the like you just have to basically queue Korea because there's not enough players. So the reason why some regions are dead is because it's really hard to play ranked in those regions, and it's really hard to play ranked in those regions because the population is really slow. So like, if you would want ranked in Australia to grow, or like the Australian region to improve, you'd want the Australian region to somehow play in Korean service without playing on like 150 ping. Like that sounds dumb, but like you have to follow the chain. That would help. 10? What? What is Stalker saying? How viable is Zen, do you think, in ranked? I mean, Zen's fine. Zen's totally fine. Ranked is ranked, mate. Like, the only really bad hero in ranked is Hog. What is your opinion on the CC duration nerfs? I mean, it's fine. I think the Earthshatter nerf, yeah, Earthshatter is dumb. Like, Reinhardt's pretty strong right now, but nerfing Earthshatter isn't the way to go. It's not what made him oppressively strong, and it just makes his ultimate really stupid to use. So, I don't like that change at all. Did we ever want to create our own hybrid comp? Yeah, we've tried a couple times and had mixed success with it. I mean, that's every strategic coach's dream, is to come up with a new goats. What is the goal with Sigma Hog? The comp happens a lot in rank. The purpose of that comp is to throw as quickly as you possibly can. I mean, Sigma Hog is just basically double flank tank. It's a bad comp. There's no way to say it. But can I poach you for a tier 3 project team? No, I don't have time for anything. I am cramming this week as much streaming and educational content as I can, and then I go back to work. And yeah, I'm under contract. I mean, yeah. I was talking about your example changes the Lucio speed boost by 10%. Oh, sorry, Stalker. Yeah, I'm slow. Just buyout. Right, sure, buyout. Do teams like it when players have experience in multiple roles, like Architect with Azana? I mean, it's helpful, but I don't really care. I mean, I don't care. Like, why would I care if Krondop could play Lucio? I mean, maybe that would improve his like game sense with main supports, but that has such a little impact. It's kind of a waste of time. In the Architect situation, though, I think it was a specific circumstance that required Architect to be on Onada, so that's kind of an unfair situation to bring up. I think it's more important in 4K scrims to play outcomes, or just play whatever your strengths are. Like, remember, and you're playing in 4K, and if you want to improve, you want to like practice the team environment, like practice building your strengths, building synergy, and you're gonna have more fun doing that. You're gonna be more consistent doing that if you are playing to your strengths. If you're trying to play Al, you're going to spend half the time trying to figure out why Al is playing what it's playing instead of actually just getting good. Sigma Hog means you have 2 off things in your team, 1 to shield. Pretty much. What hero should Echo players learn? That's a tough one right now. Flex DPS players need to be competent flankers. Like, you need to play a decent Sombra or a Tracer. That helps a lot. If you're talking about the team environment, in terms of like ranked, I don't know. But like team environment, being able to play Sombra or Tracer at least competently is pretty important for Echo players nowadays. If you had that chance, would you have someone as an internship for UA coaching staff? Maybe. The only problem is that like it would probably mean additional work for me. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough because again, it's like how much value would a person, additional staff member have? Please have you. That's cute. Yeah, Echo Tracers. Yeah, Echo Tracer are both strong heroes right now. And if you want to go like, Echo Tracer, you can go Echo Ash. You can go, Sombra Tracer, Echo Sombra. There's a lot of variety you can have with that. An idea for a team to improve as an individual in scrims? My team is 3.5K average, but scrim 4K. I mean, improve as individuals, and play more ranked. Really, like if you guys are beating 4K teams that's 3.5K, that means your synergy and your teamwork is really, really good. But you guys individually, mechanically, and in terms of your individual hero knowledge is weak. And the best way to practice that, at least in terms of like, outside of scrims, is to just play ranked. Okay, let's check Discord. There's a couple more in Discord. What are your hobbies outside of video games? I have a lot of hobbies, all of which I don't do near enough. So for a while, I was actually I played the electric guitar for several bands. I used to perform as a guitarist and a vocalist, a singer, back in the day. But most of you guys, even my stream, didn't know that. I used to sing. I actually just this past week recorded a song with my brother. But yeah, I sing and play guitar, electric guitar, all that stuff. I love to read a lot. I like to watch movies with my wife. We watch like old movies. We have like a whole movie list of stuff we like. I like to really into sports. So I was into martial arts a lot, MMA and stuff, but my real true love is flag, like football, like American football. I played a lot of tackle football, play a lot of flag football now. I love that sport. I'm trying to think. I do a workout every day, so a lot of weightlifting, speed stuff, jump training. And then if I had to add like video game, I actually before Overwatch I was the world's best word player from Lord of the Rings Online. WARG, like wolf. There was a PvMP mode, player versus monster player, on Lord of the Rings Online, an old game, and I was the world's best word player. I still play it off and on, and I'm still the best word player. It's a dead game, but it's fun. I love Lord of the Rings, man. It's such a terrible game though. It's so old, and yeah. But yeah. Taking your advice from previous question by Mr. Baggins, do you have any tips for hitscan players and analyzing pro gameplay? Which I focus generally on hitscan. So like if you're watching Overwatch League replay viewer, obviously you can sit there and wow yourself at how like they how they they're always popping off and getting kills and stuff like that. But what I would do is I would look at how they position themselves in relation to their team, and if they flank, when they do these crazy weird positions, when do they do them? So that's something that you would want to work on as a hit scan. It's like, hey, I want to watch Carpe. He goes in these hard flanks as Widow, but not just, okay, he does this flank, but when does he do that flank? Because that's the important thing that a lot of DPS players miss out on, is they go for these crazy plays that they saw in Overwatch League, but they don't actually see when that happened. The timing of flanks and aggression and positioning is really important for DPS and hit scan players. So what I would do is I would look at Overwatch replay viewers and look at how their positioning changes during the flow of the fight. When do they go aggressive? When do they play defensive? Where do they play in relation to their tanks and their team? And for that, if you're using a replay viewer, you don't even look at their perspective. You third person, and you just keep your eye on how they move around the map. That would probably be you'd probably be the biggest return on investment for time. Is it different for projectile? No, I'd say same concept in regards to how your positioning adjusts in terms of when the team fight is happening. What are your football teams, college and NFL? My grandfather went to Alabama. My family is an Alabama fan. University of Alabama. NFL. I mean, my dad grew up loving the Dallas Cowboys. I don't like the current iteration of Dallas Cowboys with Jerry Jones and the glitzy and the glam and the underperformance. But I still love Dallas. I don't like the ownership, but it is what it is. But yeah, Alabama has always been my family's team. It's the Clifton team, and then Dallas Cowboys. But again, not a fan of everything. Sing for you? I'm not going to sing for you. I do not perform on demand. Should I try to coach a team who have internal issues? I mean, you can take it as a learning experience, but internal issues, if they destroy your motivation to coach, then I would be tread carefully. I have a lot of experience with coaching teams with internal issues, and it is no fun. It can almost destroy your motivation to coach. Thoughts on region lock coming out for Contenders? I think it's the Pacific region. I mean, here's the thing. All right, here's the thing. Yeah, it sucks that Pacific Contenders is being taken over by Korean players, but you kind of have to look at this from two ways. Number one is that, yeah, I understand that like the national identity of having Pacific players playing in a Pacific region, that probably increases like I said, the national identity. There's like some pride, and it probably would, like, people would be more interested, the Singaporean, the Thailand fans would be more interested in watching the game if they're going to see their own nationality shown. But I also see how, like, if the Pacific players are good enough, then they'd be competing with the Korean players. Like, it's not like Korean players are born with like a physiological advantage over Pacific players. So, like, kind of sucks. Now, I spent a lot of time, obviously not a lot of time, but I spent some time coaching in Australian Contenders, and that is very much a region where it is national pride. Everybody is basically Aussie or New Zealand, and it has like there's like a regional culture. Australian Contenders is completely different from any other region when it comes to team, like scrim culture, team culture. It's like trolling and fun and like high energy, and it was a lot of fun. Like, it was a great, like, even going to the LAN there was awesome. But again, like, if a Korean player did play in Australian Contenders and beat up everybody, like, it sucks. But I don't know. To me, that's like a business decision that you'd have to weigh the costs of, like, maybe reducing the amount of national identity, national support, but increasing the level of play. And I don't really know the answer to that. What is the current save Sigma? I mean, he's pretty strong. Sigma is just really good at offing. Like, Sigma's a better spammer, Diva's a better diver and brawler. That's pretty much all there is to it. Like, you'll see sometimes Sigma used in brawl comps, but very rarely. Sigma's fine. He's not overpowered or underpowered. He's pretty decent right now. Which Freep class? Lord of the Rings Online. Which Freep class was your favorite to pounce in the Werg? Rank 2 in Werg, by the way. Cool. I don't know. It depends. Like, I always liked, nuking the lore masters, and then, chain silencing them, and then the induction debuffs and watching them flounder on. I mean, I used to play lore masters, so I knew all the tricks and tips and how to beat them, so that was fun. I don't see players use Overwatch League Viewer frequently enough, only coaches. Maybe you just don't see them on stream. I'm not sure. Do you see coaches stream it? I guess so. Oh, by the way, guys, we're doing Overwatch League analysis once this is done, so that'll be fun. Your friend is 13 with 4.5k peak. Wow. And wants to get Contenders, but feels like the game will die before he gets there. Is there anything you can say to him to reassure him? I mean, what? Look, you'd have to tell your friend, if he's 13 years old, he's not going to be in Overwatch League for 5 years, right? So if he's looking in terms of, like, professional opportunities, I mean, he could play Hello Kitty online for the next 5 years for all he cares. He's not going to get any. He's not going to get any professional opportunities for 5 years. So his motivation needs to be, what will I have fun doing, not what will professionally make sense, right? That question would be a lot more concerning if he was 17, right? He's up and coming professional, but yeah. Best tips to improve on main Tink. Again, like what I said earlier, like, learn how to read and adjust your playstyle against different teams. Like, any tank needs to learn how to play Ryan or Winston against dive, against brawl, against spam. And even if you're playing ranked, where it's like, you're gonna get spam with a Genji Moira, you still go, okay, which team does better in this, and which team you still can practice that. Roll Tide, yeah. I'll replay viewer head comms. That would be amusing. Met this guy in line. We're fans of so much the same Lord of the Rings to Bama. I know, right? I'm glad I made you the chief mod. Don't tell anybody else. Favorite Overwatch meta? Dive, man. It's fun. Brig Zen dive is actually pretty fun too. It's a very different type of dive. Echo Tracer was pretty cool. Echo Tracer, Tracer Sombra, that stuff is fun. I'm not a huge fan of Sombra, but Echo Tracer is pretty sweet. Good night, Kia Vector segment. Thank you so much for asking. Thanks for so much for hopping in. Appreciate it. What are your favorite Overwatch meta? Yeah, I think that's that one. So, some Tracer dives. Winston's just great. I love Winston. Winston is such a lovely hero. There's a rule of thumb that I've heard from high-level play that you should focus targets in that order. People out of positioning are feeding in general, tanks and squishies on general. Is actually true to say that you need to start damaging tanks to open space for your team? If that's true, then what should I do? Okay, so that's a general, okay, so here's the rule. Here's an absolute. There are no absolutes, okay? So like obviously people would always try and simplify a game, but ultimately simplifying something is incredibly hard, if not impossible. So like target priority, you can never simplify that enough. But saying focus people that are out of positioning or feeding, yes, like obviously that's probably your priority. And then tanks over squishies, generally. But I would say the one thing that the caveat that I would have to add to that is that it depends on the composition that you're running. So if you're playing a DPS hero, are you playing Tracer? Are you playing Sombra? Are you playing Genji? Depending on the circumstance, those heroes are probably more attracted to pressuring squishies. Depending on the comp you're running, right? Like let's say you're running full dive, right, against spam. Well, you don't want to pressure tanks. You're gonna get nuked. They have way more damage than you, so you need to kill squishies fast, right? You get on the squishies as quickly as you can. But if you're playing something like a Junkrat or an Echo or a McCree, focusing tanks is 100% probably the play. But it's more complicated than that. I will say this, that there's a ranked mentality that, hey, you should always kill the Mercy, always kill the squishies first. Don't ignore the tanks. That's not the case generally. Like you put more damage into tanks for a reason. Like tanks have a lot of HP for a reason. They're designed to be focused down, and a lot of times they're in the position to where they're the only players that you can focus down. So worst tips to improve on main tank. Let's see here. Stand AFK and chokes, and then blame your team for not getting picks. I have difficulty deciding what role to focus on. I like heroes from all three. How did you decide your role? I mean, boy. I mean, just what for? Okay, this sounds corny, and maybe you've already done this, but what heroes did I enjoy playing? So I played for a while. I was stuck in high diamond, low masters for a season or two because I played a lot of main tank and I played Zen. I just like those heroes. But I also played a little bit of Ana, but I wasn't confident in my Ana until one day I'm like, dude, I'm tired of playing main tank and Zen. And I felt like I was playing a Winston game, and then I'd have to, okay, I gotta change gears. I want to play Zen. Oh, I gotta change gears. I gotta play Ryan. So it's like, screw it. I like Ryan Winston, but I don't love them. I love Zen, and I really love Ana, but I'm not very good at her. So I was like, screw it, I'll just play Zen and Ana. Well, my SR, right? But I hit like 3K. My Ana started to get better, and I just played Zen Ana. And I climbed all the way to Grandmaster. So like, just find what heroes that mesh well together, but also what you enjoy playing. Because ultimately, if you're gonna grind something, you want to enjoy it, right? Like don't dedicate a lot of time to something if you want to improve at it, unless you enjoy it. Are there any maps you'd really recommend not running Tracer on? Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know. Tracer is extremely flexible. Tracer is unbelievably flexible, and Echo is very flexible as well. Lijiang Tower Control Center is probably not a great one for Tracer or Echo because it's so close quarters. But it's doable. I mean, that's the big one. Outside of that, it's wide open. Any map where there's ridiculously long sightlines, so maybe like a Busan Sanctuary where the drum, maybe Echo you might have a hard time playing there. But you can do it. Did you ever watch British Hurricane? I find them very cool. Lost their head coach. Or lost their... I don't know how much of an impact Hunter had with the team. So I don't know. Some teams head coach does everything. Some teams head coach doesn't do squat. So I don't know. Hunter's a good guy. I met him over in Sydney, so I'm sure he did fine. But I did not watch a lot of British Hurricane games. I had only so much time in the day. Can you explain the basic mechanics of Brig Zen Dive? My old team is trying to play with Ball Winston, but now I think about feel like that's not ideal. No, that's not ideal. Brig Zen Dive is generally run with a Sombra Tracer, and the purpose is you tank, you trade, you actively look to engage the enemy tanks with Discord and blow up the enemy tanks. Your tanks have to play very resource dry, very cautious, and you try and keep one of your flankers packed as much as you possibly can. Basically, it's like traditional dive, but with low sustain and extremely high damage. The nice thing about Brig Zen Dive is that your Zen is essentially undivable because Armor Pack is better than Lucio, Amp, Boop, etc., along with Whip Shot and Shield Bash. So your Zen is extremely hard to kill, and you also enable your flankers to play very aggressive. So it's super high damage dive, which is why it's more flexible, because map comps like Moira Lucio or Sombra Tracer Dive oftentimes you'd have a hard time like killing Brawl, or like you'd have a hard time blowing up an Orisa. With Briggs in Summer Tracer, you can kill an Orisa through Fortify. That's the kind of like, that's what Briggs in brought to the table. So you'd have to ask more about the Briggs in terms of specific comps. But yeah, Ball Winston would not be the play with that, because you want to be more you want to have the flexibility of tank trading. In other words, killing tanks, and Ball isn't very good. Like with Ball Winston dive, you'd have to only hard dive backline. And if you're only hard diving backline, you'd prefer to run it with like a Moira Lucio or something that's very just all in aggressive. Whereas a Briggs in is more content to poke, look for an opportunity and go. Yeah, this will be on YouTube. Why am I pulling a sideshow and shaving? When I'm pulling a shaving this flowing locks? When one of you guys donates $6,000, actually, let's put it this way: $6 million. If I'm gonna shave my head, it better be good. Actually, honestly, for how wonderfully handsome I am, you guys should just donate $6 million without expectation of anything in return. How should a Ryan Sigma comp play versus Orisa Sigma? You have to brawl. You have to brawl. Your Sigma can utilize his shield and his shift to close the distance, and then you got to just swing on him. You got to swing on him. Orisa Sigma is spam comp, so you got to get on top of them. You need to clear out an angle, clear out their off angle, and then either rush the off angle or rush the Orisa. Preferably rush the off angle, because Orisa would be too hard to kill. If one of your players is set on playing Ball in time, they will feel like they're doing anything in pairs. What is the other Tinks? I mean, Ball goes along okay with Diva. Ball is more of like a hero specific rather than a map compositional specific. Like, there's not a lot of comps that we'd want to play Ball in, but if they're playing something that we're trying to play dive, but we just literally can't play Winston into it, then Ball is okay. Diva is okay with Ball. It's not great. Zarya, like Ball Doom with Zarya is a pretty good comp. And the Zarya is there just for the bubble to Doom with the ball. Because Ball doesn't want Matrix. Ball wants bubble. 6 million, sweet. Do you think following watching Contenders scenes will make me a better player? I mean, if you're just chilling and watching, not really. But if you're studying, yes. Actively studying it, we'll get it to you. You got 6 cents. Make it 60 and you got a deal. You're donating 6 million and not paying money? Shut up. Thread is Thad is robbing a bank, boys. I'm gonna check Discord really fast. There's a couple other questions we'll get to in a second. Oh no, Discord is all done, so we're just on Twitch now. You did a Genji VOD review to help you get out of Plat. Hey, Caillou, wait. Help me get to Plat. Was that a Dorado? Maybe not. Just got Diamond. Congratulations. Any chance for another review? This week maybe. You'd have to sub though for a repeat review. Sub and then toss it in the Discord. But I'm usually this week because I'm not as busy with work. Can't work if the ball is distracting enemy backline. Can't it work if ball is distracting enemy backline from healing tanks while the rest of the team focusing tanks, or ball will be cleared or forced out? Well, the problem with ball is, it's a good question, and it could work, but the reason why that you would struggle more with Ball versus Winston is there's like, you think of it this way. Ball can displace and distract attention, yes, and he could do that better than Winston, yes. However, a lot of times when you're running a Winston, you're doing so because the enemy composition is going to be making it harder to deal with your Ball, right? So if you're running into Sombras, if you're running into May, if you're running into even some sort of double CC like Brig Cree, Ball is going to be the one getting hard countered faster than a Winston will be. Rialto. Oh yeah, I remember Rialto. Yeah, I remember that. I remember. I think you were not utilizing angles enough, if I remember correctly, or high ground. I think you were sitting with mine show. Best you could do is 14. Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. Okay, chat, do we have any other questions? If not, would you guys be interested in watching some Shanghai versus Seoul? Shanghai versus Seoul is one of the ones that was mentioned, and it looks promising. So I am considering doing a Shanghai versus Seoul. Hi, who are you? Sorry, I don't speak with morons in stream. Sorry, 6. We'll watch some. Maybe we'll do some Shanghai versus Seoul analysis. I have not done Overwatch League analysis in 9 months on stream. 9 months. And you want to know the last time I did Overwatch League analysis, and this is something I haven't exposed yet. You ready for the juice? The last time I did Overwatch League analysis, I did it on stream because I was so tired of doing it by myself. And you know why I was doing it by myself? Because I was trialing for Uprising Academy. The analysis I did on stream was because I had to have something to talk to or somebody to talk to during my work for my trial. So you guys help me out. Oh yeah, so yeah, Baggins, thank you for reminding me. I made a video this morning. I got it this morning. I'm like, oh, because I'm like all jet lagged and all this stuff. And I just released a video leading. Here, there's some subtle self plug here. Leading efficient, effective VOD reviews, the power of focus. If any of you guys are coaches or involved with coaching or involved with providing team or VOD reviews, and honestly, even if you do self VOD review, very, very useful video. If I do say so myself. A lot of time thinking about this one and about this topic. And honestly, this is the result of like years of doing VOD reviews and figuring out what the best way to do them. So give that a check out if you guys want. When would you go in flanks to sig? Like hard flanks or what? Like soft flanks? Because like, okay, we're gonna pull this sucker up. Now we're getting to the instructional side of things, less of the AMA. Okay. If you mean hard flank, this is the definition of a hard flank, in my opinion. This is your tank, enemy tank. Hard flank would be like here. You know what I'm saying? Is this what you're talking about? Or is this what you're talking about? Talking about 1 or 2? Which one? I could have made them different colors, but Hard flank. I mean, you can go on a hard flank. Okay, here's when you go on a hard flank. Okay, as a sig, you should always be on a soft, like not always, but 90% of the time you should be on an angle, right? But like, let's say the enemy team is like playing a brawl comp or they're playing dive and they rush super hard here. Then what do? You don't stay in AFK, you actually deepen your angle. And so you deepen into their backline. Like if they ignore you and rush your core really hard, you literally start shooting the backline. You start killing the Zen, the Ana, the Lucio. You start shooting the Reinhardt in the back. You just deepen your angle. So you don't necessarily go on a hard flank, but if they aggress, they will turn your soft flank into a hard flank by pushing deeper in. You see that? So like how your angle goes from, this right here to this right here, just because they pushed in. But you don't actively pursue hard flanks to Sigma. You're too immobile to do that. Okay. Is there any other questions? We'll wait like 1 more minute and then we're gonna get this Shanghai and Seoul stuff. You're welcome. Yeah. Diva can sometimes hard flank because she has boosters, but that's not generally the majority of the time. I'd like to take some time and thank you for everything you do and what do for the community. You bring insane value for me and others. Thank you for real. Hey man, that's really, or lady, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Like, I really appreciate that, guys. That's super nice of you guys. Like, this has been a really ugly year for me. At least the start of the year was really frustrating. Definitely a low point for me in terms of like the results and being at the facility and just not the results, just not showing, and obviously the criticisms that come with that. And then obviously being too busy to stream and all that, but I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Why didn't we make playoffs? Nah, don't even talk about that 6, dude. I was nauseous. I was irate for a long time. Very disappointed in myself. Tips for self VOD review. Click check my exclamation mark YouTube and check it out. I just did a VOD on VOD review. Self VOD review, basically, to separate it from team VOD review a little bit. Self VOD review, you just want to be finding out what you think your biggest errors are and then work on those. And then you self VOD review, a couple days later and see if you've made any improvement. You just kind of keep yourself accountable. But consistency. Thanks, literally, Twitch chat. glad I'm helping.